So the Vlatko Andonovski era is officially underway for the U.S. women's national soccer team. They played their first two friendlies under their new coach this past weekend, a 3-2 win over Sweden and a 6-0 win over Costa Rica. So certainly off to a good start for the Macedonian-American coach, formerly of Reign FC, and before that FC Kansas City. So he's a manager who's been around the NWSL for a while now, knows the women's game in America incredibly well, and once it was announced that Jill Ellis was going to be stepping down, Andonovski was immediately one of the top listed candidates for the job, and it certainly seems like he has the support of, most importantly, the players on the team. So hopefully things can, keep going in a positive direction with these first two friendlies as the first step in that direction. So with a new coach come new ideas and oftentimes maybe some new players, and we saw that this weekend. We saw a handful of players who were not on the World Cup squad that was victorious in France earlier this year. Some players who have been in the national team picture before were brought back in, and a few players were given their first chance of the national team atmosphere. So I wanted to take a quick look at those players you may not know if you mostly know this team from the World Cup, just as a quick introduction, as maybe with Andonovski as the new coach, you might see more of them down the road. So starting with the players who've been there before, Chicago Red Stars defender Casey Short got her 31st cap as a member of the USWNT this weekend. She started against Sweden, and she's a name who's familiar to national team fans and NWSL fans in general. She was probably the last name left off of this summer's World Cup roster, but then backed up the fact that she maybe should have been included by being named to the NWSL Team of the Month every single month this season. Weirdly, she was then not named as the Defender of the Year. Becky Sauerbrunn won that instead, and while Sauerbrunn's a really good defender, even she thought it was weird that Casey Short didn't win. The NWSL awards really got messed up. They gave out a lot of stuff to players who were at the World Cup this summer and thus played a whole lot less for their clubs, to the extent of Rose Lavelle, who only played 6 games for the Washington Spirit this year, making the Team of the Year. But Casey Short took full advantage of her opportunity this year with the World Cup players gone. She was awesome for the Red Stars this season and certainly deserved to be included back in the national team. And she's a player who we could see a lot more of over the next couple of years and can certainly expect to be involved in the Olympics next summer. Short isn't as young as a lot of the players who are kind of becoming the face of the U.S. women's national team, but she's a bit of a late bloomer. She had some serious injury issues derail the first couple of years of her professional career. Same thing happened in 2017 with the Red Stars. She missed a lot of time. So she doesn't have as many miles on her legs as other players in their late 20s, and so can still maybe have several years at the top of her game to continue to contribute not only in Chicago and then maybe elsewhere, but for the USWNT as well. Next up is striker Lynn Williams, who's been a household name, at least in NWSL circles, for quite some time now with the Western New York Flash and then the North Carolina Courage. She's been a huge part of the Courage's back-to-back championship runs, and maybe hasn't gotten the opportunity that her stats at club level have warranted when it comes to the USWNT. She did have 19 caps before this weekend, and she got to play the second half of both games, including scoring 2 goals in the second half against Costa Rica. At 26 years old, Lynn Williams should be in her prime right now, and given that the U.S. striker options are getting older, she could have a good opportunity over the next several years to be more involved with the national team program, and she made a pretty good first statement under the new coach Vlatko Andonovski this weekend with those 2 goals against an albeit fairly weak Costa Rica side, but still, my guess is we're going to see more Lynn Williams than we have. The third and final of the returning players is Andi Sullivan, a midfielder and defender who plays for the Washington Spirit and earned her 15th and 16th caps this weekend. Now, she just graduated from Stanford last year, but she's been around for a while in terms of both the NWSL and U.S. soccer. She started training with the Spirit's reserve team all the way back in high school, and she played in the USLW League for them for a couple seasons as well. On the national team side, she's played at the U17, U20, and U23 level, excelled at all of them, and got her debut for the national team back in late 2016. Unfortunately for her, shortly thereafter she tore her ACL, which kind of shifted her out of the picture in terms of the players Jill Ellis was looking at to fill the World Cup roster. She played the second half of both the Sweden and Costa Rica games this weekend, and it will be interesting to see if Vlatko Andonovski sees a bigger role for Andi Sullivan down the road as part of the national team now that she's back fully healthy and playing regularly at the NWSL level. All right, let's get to the newbies. The first one is Washington Spirit teammate of Andi Sullivan, Aubrey Bledsoe. The goalkeeper did not get onto the field for either of the two games this weekend, but she still had a pretty incredible 2019. She won the NWSL Goalkeeper of the Year, managing to break into that team of the year that was filled with World Cup players, and has really kind of put herself forward as someone who could be involved in the national team squad in the future. In terms of the USWNT's current goalkeepers, Ashlyn Harris is 34, Alyssa Nayer's 31, and the next one down the line after that is Adriana Franch, who Bledsoe is a year younger than. So you could see maybe Franch and Bledsoe, two really outstanding keepers in the NWSL, maybe competing down the road for more time with the U.S. women's national team, particularly maybe even the starting job when we come around to the next World Cup in 4 years. Next up is Alana Cook, a defender who actually plays over in France for Paris Saint-Germain. Unlike the rest of the players in this list, who are all NWSL players, she forewent the NWSL college draft at the end of her Stanford career, electing to go straight to Europe, where she's only played a handful of times so far for PSG, but especially with the potential for European clubs to be investing more in their women's teams in the future, it's not maybe a bad path to try to make more money if you can overseas and get that really high-level experience for a team like PSG. She played the entirety of the Costa Rica game, and she's a player who is no stranger to the national team system, having come up through the youth ranks. One interesting note, though, on Alana Cook, she is also eligible to represent England through her father. She trained with England's national team earlier this year, but did not play for them. And I should note that this match this weekend against Costa Rica, because it was a friendly, she's not capped to the United States permanently because of that. It counts as an appearance, but it does not tie her forever to the U.S. women's national team. Her first opportunity to be tied going forward is going to be Olympic qualifiers in a couple months. So Alana Cook, definitely a name you're going to want to watch out for on that Olympic roster, because if she's there, it means she's in with the USWNT for the long haul and that Vlatko Andonovski believes in her. Next is 2018 NWSL Rookie of the Year, Imani Dorsey, who did not see the field this weekend either. She was an unused sub in the Sweden game, but she's an interesting prospect to look at going forward. She's normally a striker in NWSL, but was listed as a defender on this roster. I will refrain from automatically getting too into Crystal Dunn equivalents there, so say what you will about that, but she's another player who, like so many of the top-level players on this team, can play almost anywhere on the field and could be a vital piece for this program going forward. Again, she's young, still new to the NWSL, did not get a chance to make her debut, but Vlatko Andonovski showed that she's on his radar going forward. So Imani Dorsey, a name to remember, but maybe not one who's going to make the headlines quite yet. And finally, there's Midge Purce from the Portland Thorns, who got her first USWNT appearance against Costa Rica. She'd actually been called into camp before, but had never played, and she's been a really important part of the success that the Portland Timbers have had over the past couple of seasons. She was originally a defender, but now finds herself playing forward most of the time for Portland. So like Imani Dorsey, she's a very, very versatile player, and we'll have to see where Vlatko Andonovski sees her making the biggest impact in the future. She played right back against Costa Rica. Again, the USWNT weren't doing a whole lot of defending in that game, but she made a good impact in the attacking side of things. She was pretty consistently involved in the build-up. A cross of hers ended up leading to an own goal late in the game. So, again, we'll see what her role is long-term. Right back is a position where there could be an opportunity. Kelly O'Hara has probably played her last World Cup for the USA. So, between the next few years, Emily Sonnet, someone like Midge Purce, there's going to be competition for that spot. And not a bad start for Midge Purce in trying to make a good impression on Vlatko Andonovski. So that's it for the new players, but a couple quick postscripts on players you're definitely familiar with if you know anything about this team, who had really impressive weekends. First up is the aforementioned Rose Lavelle, who, though she didn't play much this season post-World Cup, that might be a good thing for her. She looked really fresh in these two games, just destroying both defenses. She had 2 assists in the Costa Rica game, looked really smooth on the ball throughout. And I've said this before, that I think she's got the potential to be one of the best players in the world here in the very near future. She won the bronze ball at the World Cup this summer. I think she's really on the cusp of becoming a world superstar in soccer, whether it's for the USWNT, the Washington Spirit, or any other clubs she plays for in the future. So I don't know if she's going to take this offseason to rest or if she'll go on loan to somewhere in Europe. But, either way, Rose Lavelle doesn't look like she's missed a step from the World Cup. Then there's Carly Lloyd, who just continues to defy her age with how well she's playing right now. 2 goals against Sweden, 1 more in the 4th minute against Costa Rica. And Carly Lloyd looks like she's playing the best soccer of her career right now, despite the fact, like I said, she'll be 38 years old when the Olympics kick off next August. And with Alex Morgan a doubt because she'll be having a child early next year, she says she wants to be back, but only time will tell if she's able to recover in time. No one really has any idea right now. Carly Lloyd is in line to make the team, maybe start and maybe even captain the U.S. women's team next summer at the Olympics, which is absolutely incredible. It's so cool to see how well Carly Lloyd is playing right now. And who knows, she might just be the Tom Brady of women's soccer and could do this forever. So that's all for this video. Just quick, wanted to introduce a few people who might not be familiar with these players to the fact that you should keep them on your radar if you're going to be following the USWNT over the next few years, because a few of them might show up on that World Cup roster in 2023. You never know. So, the team is done for 2019. They'll roll over the calendar to early next year when Olympic qualifying happens in January. Until then, they're off and the NWSL season is over. So keep an eye out for that Olympic roster coming out in a month or so. Again, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Give it a like and a subscribe if you did, and I'll see you next time. You want to say hello to that camera? Say hello.